First up, here's Liz Coyle Camp as the Yew Tree, and it's the Georgian period.
La 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 la. Oh, hello. Where have you been? Or should I say, where have I been? I haven't left this spot in 4,000 years. And not that I have any choice. Where on earth could I lumber off to? Huh? Believe you and me, a yew on the move means only one thing: cut down and on the way to the sawmill. No, I'm quite content to stand here and intend to for at least another 4,000 years, unless, that is, you lot do anything else to make the weather worse than it is already. You try standing out in non-stop rain for 40 days in a row and... No, sorry, that's enough. I'm not here to moan at you, my ardent friends. I am here to recount a brief history of Tisbury as told by its oldest and most good-looking specimen, the much-adored yew tree in St. John's churchyard. You know the one. Bit of concrete stuffed in my middle by some well-wishing fool. And there lies a tale for another day. Right, now, dear listener, I want to tell you about the Georgian era and how the lovely citizens of Tisbury were progressing here and out in the world beyond the Nadder Valley. The Georgian period kicked off with George I coming to the throne in 1714. And one of the things that you could not fail to notice, and I will never forget, was the ludicrous wigs worn by the wealthy amongst us, the size of which was in direct correlation with the size of their purse. Well, what did you think I was going to say? So, the richer, the bigger, and more elaborate were the creations adorning their heads. Good, honest, and hard-working country folk had neither the time nor the money to wear them. Most working men, though, grew their hair long instead, so it was all a bit Woodstock without the electric guitars. Anyway, I digress. This was the era of a big expansion of British, French, and Dutch colonies across the world. Fueled by slavery, many of the landed gentry were filling their coffers with the profits from their investments in the horrible Caribbean plantations, including our very own locals, the Beckfords of the Fonthill estate. And just to give you an idea of their wealth, they were able to invite a certain child prodigy called, now, what was his name? Mozart, to give some piano lessons as well as a recital or two to their own darling little William the Younger Beckford. I swear to the mother Yew that I spotted that little fellow Mozart in a carriage passing by one day. Imagine that. I also remember, but long before Mozart was tutoring young Beckford, the time that religious beliefs were still causing some disharmony. In Tisbury, places of worship were going up, and in the case of St. John's Steeple, coming down. Twice! I kid you not. The weather was at fault there, and no doubt some dodgy building work, I'm sure. Storms, though, were gathering in other parts of the village, with disagreement between the Anglicans and a break-off group, the nonconformists they called themselves. So much so that when the nonconformists decided to build their own church in 1726, they did most of the building work during the middle of the night. Can you imagine? And I often witnessed their womenfolk hurrying up the high street to stand in protection during the daylight hours. I may be just a lump of wood, but even I perceived a definite lack of Christian fellowship in those days. The big wig wearers contributed to the local economy by using their profits from plantations, rent and agriculture to make their houses and gardens even more flashier than their neighbours. Their spending created local demand for stone, timber, carting, gardening, the building trades, and even domestic service. This century was the pinnacle era for Stourhead, Wardour, and the Fonthill estate, to name but a few. And all the village trades like stonemasons, wheelwrights, carpenters, tailors, cobblers, bakers and brewers benefited in some way, although not all earned enough to make a living. A Tisbury workhouse would come into use by 1769, and well I remember the poor souls passing by on their way to that particular unsavoury destination. My wooden heart bled for them. During this century, the Chicksgrove quarry was flourishing, providing work to Tisburgers in quarrying and stonemasonry. We all took pride, as well as being slightly mystified, in the reputation of two local men, father and son, Joseph and Josiah Lane, who were the renowned grotto makers of that time. They were sought after by every big house owner in the south for their skills with stone and building, alongside their absolutely wild imaginations. For most ordinary folk, grottos were a mystery, but somehow the Lanes tapped into this peculiar, if not pointless fashion, and the bottomless needs of the rich and powerful. And do you know, much of their work still survives today. Naturally, the whole Georgian era ended with the death in 1820 of our mad King George III. Sometimes I felt a little mad myself, watching the comings and goings and having to keep my very pertinent observations to myself. One could feel a little lonely if it wasn't for the birds and the squirrels and, of course, you.
The Yew Tree Chronicles.